Oh, looks like I might be live. Let me check and see if everything is running. Maybe not quite live. Are we live now? I think I'm live. Please let me know if you're watching. Do let me know if you can see the video and if you can hear me. You can, if you're on YouTube, you can just pop a note in the live chat and I'll see it. I'm live, Cindy and Martin, thank you very much. And if you're on Facebook, you can just write a normal comment. Okay, so today I am the beginning of something, I don't know what yet. Maybe a final painting, maybe just a value study. Well, I say just, it's not really just value studies. Want to sort out an approach to this setup. I just put this together today. So I've got it on the still life stand now. The little yellow roses from the garden, probably going to be one of the last ones, if not the last one for this year. So I've already prepared the panel. So this is an ampersand gesso board panel and it's 12 inches by 9. And I've prepared it with this, which is a mixture of linseed oil and a little bit of terps. So you can probably see, like, I've roughed out where things go, where things are going, but I haven't actually really drawn them. Like, you know, for this pot at the back, I haven't actually drawn the pot. It's just, I've only put notes for where I can actually see where it is. You know, for instance, this bit here, I can see the edge only just, but this bit I can't see the edge, so I haven't bothered to draw it because I'm not going to paint it. This edge of this squash here, I haven't bothered to draw because if I squint down, I can't see it. So what you're going to see me do a lot of today is paint across forms and paint just light and shadow. Alex, thank you. That's great. From your dental lab. That's pretty cool. I hope you're not doing anybody's teeth at the same time. Hello, Junior. And Palette and Easel, hello, on YouTube. So I've already kind of pretty much figured out what values are going to go where. I've got a good idea of what's going to go where, okay. So I've got, it might just be a value study this, but I'll talk a little bit more about the colours that I've got here on the palette because I have actually mixed them. But this is, I always use this for my values. This is the Munsell value scale. Okay. Hello, Kathleen. All right. You called something else on YouTube. So this is the Munsell value scale. So in terms of this scale, it throws some people out because on the Munsell scale, the low values are the low numbers. Kind of makes sense to me, but you know, not everybody does it this way. So value 1 is very near the bottom of the scale and value 9 is very near the top. And what I've got mixed here is this is a value 2, this is a 3, that's a 5, and that's a 7, and that's a 9. So what I've really got is 3, 5, 7, 9, but I've also got a 2. I'll maybe talk a little bit about why I've got that. And I've got 2 big fat brushes here. These are 1/2 inch hogs from Cornelison's flats. And I always put a little bit of oil on them first and then wipe them off just to get them going. And I know I want for this big triangle shape down here, I know I want low down the value scale, so I'm going to go in with about a 2 there. Which looks incredibly dark, you know, against that. Actually, should I go in with a 2? Or would it be interesting to go lighter? I'll leave that bit as it is and I'm going to go a little bit lighter just to see what, just to see. So that's the top of the pot. I can just about see it. This here, that line there is the kind of the rim of the lid. There's a tiny little highlight here on the edge of the handle that I can see. I'm just leaving these as registration points for now, just so I know that they're there. because I'm going to paint right across this. I'm not going to bother painting the pot really, I'm just going to suggest it. Ginger jar, it's a jar, not a pot. These are where the little highlights are going to go. How far out is that? This goes up maybe to there-ish. So this can all be filled in. So I'm trying to paint light and shadow shapes. So this has been deliberately set up so that I've got like light against shadow. So the light side of this squash here is against the deep shadow, you know. That's deliberate. Why have I decided to go a bit lighter? Just to see. Because as long as I keep the relationships good, I've got a little bit of leeway with the values. So over here, this shadow keeps going. It does get a little bit lighter, but I'm just gonna put it in for now. So I'm actually painting here. This is the surface of the squash in shadow, and this is the shadow behind it, but I'm going to paint right across that edge there. This is the edge of the pot, which I can just about see in the background because it has a darker value next to it. So if I go in there with like a really low value, like a 1, that would actually be the value that I want there for the pot. That side of the pot just shows against the background. So all of this is going to be really dark. Mostly kind of keying things in at the moment. Setting up lights and shadows. Hello, Kate. Nice to see you. David too. Good to see you, David. Francine from Ottawa. I have no idea where is Ottawa. I have no idea where that is. Is it? I've got this vague idea. Forgive me my ignorance and complete lack of geography, but it's in Canada, right? Is that right? Let's make this properly dark. See a little bit of the pot up there, but not really. Go maybe a little bit lighter there. There's the top. What does that line up with? Roughing that in for now, not really sure exactly where I'm going to put that. The capital of Canada, or at least I'm not completely ignorant. Hello, Christine. Good to see you. And Kim is here. Good to see you. I'm excited to paint. Actually, I'm really looking forward to this one, to seeing how it goes. So I'm still on with all the darks at the moment. Hello, Alex. Alex says, such a useful approach, painting light and shadow and not every known edge. Totally. So I'm going to go a little bit lighter than the photo is up here, and I'm going to use like value 5. So this is like about the middle of the value range up here. And one of the things that happened on the photo that I'm not so keen on is that this shadow, the line of the shadow actually kind of touches the top, and I thought, well, that's a bit, you know, I should have done something about that when I was setting the photo up, and I didn't. So also you'll notice that I'm deliberately making sure that all of my brush strokes go in different directions so that I don't end up with something that looks, you know, too false. Having the strokes go in all different directions kind of creates a bit more space and atmosphere in it. And soften that edge a little bit. Actually, it's going to go a little bit darker over to the right here, so I'll do that a little bit now, I think. I mean, what I want to do at this stage is I just want to get it covered, but I want to make sure that everything that I put down is definitely in the right place and somewhere near the value that I'm going to want it to end up being. So I need 2 or 3 somewhere like that. It's going to be like, you know what? I mean, the flower is here, roughly. So I'm carving out the shapes with the shadows, if you like. Flower's going to be about there. All of this, you can't really see what's going on there if you squint down. I mean, there is some variation in there, but if I squint down, I can't really see it. I think this shadow is going to be pretty dark, like shadow comes right up to there, I think. It comes down and joins the top of the flower. So this is sort of like negative drawing, I guess, in a way. And this bit only has a bit of this squash here only has a bit of a really dark shadow there. But the cast shadow here is very dark. Goes back over to the flower. So I'm just kind of thinking out loud as I'm kind of planning it out. I can kind of see this shape here. That's going to be pretty much my lowest value. Then I'll get over to those 2 little highlights. So I really don't want to get into painting this pot, you know, because, you know, apart from anything else, there's a really good chance I'll get the values wrong and overstate it. I'm squinting right down at the moment and trying to see just the values. This is very dark. There's a dark there. But I'm trying to be careful to make sure that I put things in the right place and that I keep some little areas, like I've left these areas because I know I'm going to want to paint those in a bit. Now, personally, I like with these kind of studies, I like them to be really brushy, especially the background. I'll probably do the softening thing in a little while once I've got the values in and I've checked the drawing and everything. This is going to get softer the further it goes away from up here because it's a cast shadow. Cast shadows, the edge gets softer the further away you get from the object that's casting them. Steve, you're from Newton Aycliffe? No way. Do you know I'm from Gisborne, right? I mean, I don't live there now. I live in the Cotswolds now. But I'm from just down the road from you, mate. All right, we've got something going on now. We've got beginnings of some values set up. And I can start to relax a little bit and enjoy the process a bit more. See, this is tiny, this little fleck of light here. Tasha, it's 12 inches high by 9 inches across this panel. It's an ampersand panel. Jean, I'll talk about the colours in a minute because there's something possibly interesting going on there, which you might want to know about. Hello, Tyler. Nice to see you. Yeah, maybe a little bit early. I'm probably going to be starting streaming a bit earlier on Wednesdays now because my eldest boy's got football practice on a Wednesday evening, so I can't stay on too late. I've got to take him down there. Hello, Mario. Hi, Roberta. You're very welcome. Yeah, I'm from Gisborne, Steve. Oh, you're in Boston. Lots of fine painters come from there, Jean. You know what? I'm going to this is looking at this is just a big synthetic wash brush. Just so here, this value here, I'm trying to put the big shapes in first, you know, so now I'm going to get my light brush out. So this is a 7, that's a 9. You know what, I think I'm going to, this being a cloth, I'm going to make that, I'm going to talk about the colours in a minute, but all of this has a bit of chroma to it and a bit of hue, but it's not straight out of the tube. I mean, I could do this just with raw umber or something, but I'll explain in a minute what I'm doing there, because I need more white. The white I'm using, by the way, is absolutely tremendously gorgeous. It's Rublev Lead White number 2, which is in, what's it in? Not poppy oil, what's it in? Can't remember. What's the other one? Walnut oil, right? Walnut oil, yeah. So dries a bit slower. The only reason I've got this is because the shop had run out of the linseed oil one. Personally, I don't think it makes a huge amount of difference, but maybe I'm a little bit too cavalier about these things. So I want a value 8. So this is a 7, this is a neutral. So this value 8 that I'm mixing up now is going to be like, it's just lead white and ivory black. So that is going to mean that it's going to be slightly cooler in terms of hue than, do I want an 8? That's about an 8. Slightly cooler than these other colours, because all of these colours, these are actually yellows. I know it might not look like it, but trust me, they are, because I'm a Munselite and I know the hue of the colours that I'm using. So there's a slightly lower value where the plane of the cloth changes there, which I think I'm going to keep. But there's a difference here between this colour and this one of hue. Maybe this is going to be too stark. Of hue and chroma as well as value. Try not to get into too much painting everything in the same direction. No, don't like that really. So I'm just trying to set up the space with the values and make sure that everything's going to work. In very, in kind of broad general terms, I'm just looking for the pattern of the lights and the shadows. Because I think it really helps with the composition and with the decisions that you make later on about what you're going to leave in and what you're going to leave out. A little bit of edge handling as well while I'm here. So this is right at the back, this edge, so I want this to be really soft. It's a good idea to do that before I do this bit, because then I can bring the softness like right up into that shape and then paint the edge of that over it, which will give it a lot of depth. So when you have a soft edge behind or against a hard edge, the hard edge appears to come forward. So it's a good way of creating depth. So I'm overdoing this, I'm making that edge much softer in my painting than it really is. Down here we're going to go a little bit darker. Let's say that's a 7, so I'll go down a little bit from there. Between the 5 and the 7, I'm going to be about value 6. Create this bottom area of the cloth, but also I don't want to just go sideways stroke, because that won't create as much form as if I make it like this. I think we're getting there. Soft edge there. Hi, Francesca. Hello, Elaine. Long time no see. Yeah. Hello, Anna. You're very welcome. I love doing these sessions. Alex says, does Munsell have an increasing following in the UK? Quite different colour wheel. I do not use it. In the UK, I don't really know. I think globally, people are starting to realise that it's useful. When people first started using it in paintings, there was, let's say, a certain amount of resistance from some quarters, and it perhaps wasn't particularly well presented at first, and didn't go down very well with a lot of people. There were lots of arguments and painting forums about it. You know, you don't have to use it. It's just a way of understanding and controlling colour. I like it. I think it's incredibly useful. It's really useful for teaching, because I can make sure, as long as someone has got this value scale, if I'm teaching them online, I can be sure when I say to them a value 3 that that's the value that they put down, you know. So from that point of view, it's really, really useful. And I think to some extent, its usefulness in that regard is yet to really to be realised by a lot of people who teach. But yeah, I mean, don't have to use it. I think it works well, but you know, lots of other methods and approaches work well too. So this is actually, now you brought up Munsell, probably a good time for me to start talking about what I've got going on with the colours here. So this is it's kind of a value study and kind of not. I'm not putting any colour in it at the moment, but this is not just black and white that I'm painting here. Now, normally when I do a value study, I'll mix near neutrals. So they'll be close to the neutral. These are neutrals. They'll be close to that, but they'll be slightly, I usually put a little bit of bit more raw umber in them, so they're slightly warm. If you just mix black and white, usually what you end up with is something that in hue terms is tending a little bit towards blue. So if you put a little bit of orange in it, I mean, this is basically complement mixing in very low chromas. If you put a little bit of orange in it, like a raw umber, then you can push it back towards neutral. What I've actually got here is a string of yellows, very low chroma yellows, right? So I was saying the values I've got here is 2, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So I can mix everything that I need in between them. Over here, I've got very close neutrals there. But the reason I've chosen the yellows, well, actually, let me tell you first how I've controlled and mixed these. So you can see, hopefully you can see, like these are Munsell chips. So there's my 2, there's my 5, sorry, my 3, 2, 3, 5, the 7, and the 9. But they're not all the same chroma. So these ones are chroma 1, which means very close to grey. By the time I get down to the bottom of this string, I'm chroma 2, slightly more chroma in the shadows. So this happens in light. You know, that happens in indoor light. If you have an object of low chroma, any shadow which is cast on it will be higher chroma than the local colour is. And where it's in the light, it will be lower chroma. So, you know, this has been, that's one step of chroma. So the difference in chroma between this and this is very slight. Between that and that, it's very slight. But nonetheless, it has an effect. And the reason I've chosen the yellows is because I admit to being a bit of a colour obsessive. I painted this a while ago. This is the closest example I've got of it. So this is painted in this studio on this same still life stand. And the shadows are the same color. Hopefully you can see they're pretty much the same color. Like I've used basically the color scheme of this as the basis for a value study, because that is the color of the shadows in my studio. Trust me on this, I've checked them very, very carefully indeed. And I've got the same background board set up here as I had in that painting as well. So, you know, I mean, because I do Munsell stuff, I don't have to just say to myself, well, I'm going to do a value study, but I want to have a bit of colour in it, so I'll do raw umber and white. Raw umber and white works really nicely for value studies, by the way. So does black and white, and so does a mixture of the two. But I've chosen something which is going to be closer to the reality that I see. And I've also controlled the chroma in a way that I know that the color actually behaves in low chroma. So am I going to add any color? Well, I don't know. These chips here are actually the color of that little rose. At the moment, I think I probably won't, but you never know. But I've been getting into doing a lot of kind of, I want to do more experiments with basically monochrome painting, with choosing particular colors. I'm going to soften all of that, and then doing a whole painting with them. So that's an explanation of how I mixed those colors, and why I chose them. Bear in mind that they're chosen not from the photo, they're chosen from what I see in front of me, you know. Let's soften this. Right down, we'll soften this. So I want to keep some brush strokes in the background, but I want to make sure that I've got very, very soft effect in the back. I'm even going to soften off that where I've painted that pot. That pot is starting to appear though, you notice. In fact, if I got a smaller brush, and just wondering about if I put that, not the highlights, not the highlights so much, but that, you know, the rim is a slightly different glaze. I hope I've got it in the right place. No, something's really off now. I think the top of this is too low. Yeah, I think that should be higher. The top of the pot. So this is a good time for me to be thinking about sorting out some drawing as well, because I can basically see the composition pretty much now. I've got to sort out the values here, the value blocks there, but I can see, you know, light triangle with a couple of little spots against this. So there's a lot of dark, you know, with a bit of light at the bottom. I was really in two minds actually about this. It could be more like there. About this setup. I wasn't sure how I was going to crop the composition, because I also liked it when it was kind of like this. It's difficult for me to set it up so all the stuff was at the top, and there was a lot of space. There was a lot of cloth at the bottom. Sorry, let me line that up properly. Let me get the monitor up so I can see what I'm doing. It looked good both ways, either like this with a lot of space at the bottom and everything kind of squashed in at the top, or as it's ended up. You know, I couldn't quite decide which was going to be the best. And I've ended up with this, which is, I suppose, is a bit more obvious, but it just seemed like it was going to work better. Need some more black. So the colors that I've used to mix these yellows, it's, by the way, if anyone here is a Munsell type person, that it's all 5Y. But chroma 2 at the bottom, going up to chroma 1 at the top. So the chroma drops as I go up. They are up the value scale, which happens with objects with very low chroma. So this is ivory black. I've got raw umber, tiny little bit of transparent red oxide, because in the low values I needed to push it slightly more towards orange. Green gold and yellow ochre I used a little bit of as well. But at the moment I'm trying to get the top of the pot in the right place, because it just isn't. I think higher than that even. What do we have around here? 3. I need to carve that out because it's quite thin. So all across here, you can't see the difference really between the background and the top of the pot at all. So I'll just paint across that. This has gone too far to the left. Bring it in a bit. And then that gets darker, obviously, as it goes over towards the right, until it finally disappears. So I'm just sorting out the drawing really of the pot at the moment. I kind of like where this is going at the moment. Probably darker here. No edge, I'm not painting an edge there at all. There's a suggestion of an edge here, but it's not obvious. But here I'm not having one at all. Because I don't need it, but I think here it is definitely a little darker. So my pot is beginning to appear. There'll be a little note of light on it there as well. I kind of like it looming mysteriously in the background. Oh, sorry, I'm not keeping up with the messages. I'm enjoying myself too much. Okay, it says, I like the way you're stopping to check the values and shapes at this stage to see that the overall appearance of the piece works before you've invested too much time in it. That's such a good point. That's a hard lesson to learn. I mean, it's taken me years to learn that lesson. I spend a lot of time at this stage trying to make sure that I'm not screwing everything up royally, like, because it's going to be too late later to fix it. There's a bit of cloth you can see in the back there. I don't want to spend loads of time perfecting my edges and then find out that they're in the wrong place. What a nightmare. I have to repaint loads of stuff. So, while it's at this stage, I'm really enjoying this little dark top of this thing here. I actually like the way that's coming out into the light a little bit there. I like that a lot. Yeah, so it's really, I think it's crucial to sort this stuff out at this stage. I really do. The pattern of light and shadow, the edges, where everything being in the right place, try and sort all of that out right at this stage. I'm not bothered about whether that flower looks like a flower at all at the moment. When I get to it, I'm just going to put blobs of value in and nothing else, I think we're getting there. This has got too wide, so I need a lighter value, background value here. Bring him in. So one of the things that I really liked about this setup when I put it together is that there's no edge here and there's no edge here. So the actual edge of the squash comes down like, you could probably see it from the photo, but it comes down like around there. That's the actual edge of the squash. And the actual edge of the pot is like around there, But I think it's much more useful to look at these as patterns of light and shadow and get those in the right place with the right edge handling than it is to paint the thing. We're not painting things when we paint realistically. We're painting light and shadow. So that's what we should be thinking about when we're painting. This is not really. I haven't got enough paint on there now. I'm going to have to put some more paint on. So I had 5 in the light part. That's got a bit darker than mine. 1 to 3 in the dark part. I'm not happy with the edge here. I've lost, you know, while I've been fiddling with this pot, I've lost the background, the feel of the background. And paint it again. These big strokes. And we'll define the edge a bit more up here to make it obvious that it's light coming down. I think that's got too dark. All right. Hello, Joel. Nice to see you. Simon says, I find it super useful if I'm struggling to decide what the color actually is. Oh, like, yeah, Munsell, yeah, sure. Hello, super to see you. Alex says, I love watching the forms emerge. Magic. Yeah, me too. It's probably my favorite part of painting. It's partly why I love, probably why I love doing value studies so much. Let's stop wimping out and get some value in on these, on the rose and the squash. Oh, Diane says, when your object is a different color from your background, how do you lose the shadow edge? Actually, I think those passages are really lovely in the painting. I'm always very happy when I've got them. I will paint one up to the other. If it's a shadow area, there probably won't be that much difference in color, and then just really soften the edge, just obliterate the edge between them. You know, and if you have a slight difference in chroma and hue, but they're the same value, it always looks really beautiful, I think, if you do that. Dog's more important, Kate. Kate's got to walk the dog. Alan, yes, it did talk about chroma already. So basically, this string is chroma 2 at the bottom and chroma 1 at the top. So my shadows have slightly more chroma than my lights, which gives you a bit of depth. So this is all yellow as well. This is all monotone at the moment. We'll see what happens when I get to the squash, see if I get away with it on there as well. I'm by no means sure that I'm going to add color to this at all. I might just keep it as a value study in low chroma yellows. Squash. So I think I'll go from the back to the front, so I'll paint the one at the back first. So it basically just needs a light patch, about a value 8. Have I got an 8? Mixed. That's a 7. Don't know what that is anymore. Let's get, to differentiate it from the cloth, I'm going to give it a little bit of chroma. So that's a 9. This is a 7. So these have a little bit of chroma. So the cloth I've done just with black and white. But this is like very, very, very low chroma yellow. I mean, this isn't, I'm not doing things the color they are by any means. I suppose what I'm doing is I'm basically doing a value study, but there's some small kind of changes to the color here and there. So down here, what kind of shape do we want? Go across. This edge, like this is a cast shadow, so I'm going to want this to go really, really soft, but I'll just put the paint up next to it for now. Right down to the rose. The rose is not going to make it. I forgot to put, what I normally do is I've got these little things and I fill them full of water and then stick it on the end. Just see if I've got some water somewhere. A little bit, this might help. Put a little bit of water in there. Try not to dribble any onto the palette. Stick a lid on it. And the thing is, it has a, I think florists use these. I learned this tip from Kathleen Speranza. And then they have a little hole in the top in the lid, so you can stick the stem in. I'm going to do it now. Stick the stem in, so hopefully it should last a little bit longer. Hopefully. Because I still want the colour. I say I'm not sure I'm going to put it in, but we'll see. Right, so this edge is a strong edge. This is going to be a hard edge of this squash here. Bringing it forward. It's hard edge for now, but I think what I'm going to do pretty soon is obliterate all of the edges. So as we go around here, I'm going to ignore those leaves for now. We're going down a bit in value, so here's a 7. As we go around here, oops, picked up some black. That's off my cloth. Most annoying. I'm going to go down to a 5 by the time we get over here. Where's my edge softener? This edge I want to be very soft because this is cast shadow. Edges are hugely important in showing differences in form. So this is a hard edge against a softer edge there. This can go off into, this can be soft. So this is not the edge of the squash here. The edge of the squash is actually out there, right? I can put in let's get a nice rough hog. Can put in a little bit of light going off this way just to show that that's not the edge. This also I'm going to do with an 8, although I think some parts of it will be a bit lighter. So I'm saving my highest values for the very highest values are going to be on the light parts of the pot, and there'll be some slightly down from there will be on the squash. So what's going on here? Where the squash meets the pot, I haven't brought the pot down far enough, and it's dark there. It's up. So I'm going to use the pot to kind of carve out the drawing of the top of the squash. And then right hand side of the squash around here, still in the light, so this bit I would say is kind of half tone really. 7, 5, we'll go 6. Thank you, Diane. Big brush. I'm into big brush painting. Especially when I'm at this stage, you know, I don't want to be faffing with little brushes. I want to be thinking in big shapes. So using a big brush. You just want to be using the right brush. To me, anyway, you want to be using the right brush for the stage of the painting you're at. I want to be thinking in big shapes. So I want to be using a big brush. Later on, you know, and there will be some bits where I will want to use a smaller brush. Later on, I'll be moving to smaller brushes, but for now, I just want to be thinking big shapes. I think it goes down a bit in value, like it's just going to be too dark. Maybe a little. So I'm trying to ignore the bubbles and see that as a shape, if you know what I mean. It's dark up around there. Ignore the small forms and get the big shapes. That's lighter. Back to the 8, I even go up a little bit. This is lighter. It's actually quite amazing what you can do with a great big brush if you're careful. And there's something nice about it being. Let me think about what I'm saying here. It's like almost on the edge of being out of control. It adds texture that you perhaps wouldn't find if you were doing it all with a very small brush. This is getting a bit tight for the brush this size now. It is getting a bit tight, I admit it. Smaller brush required. So this is like value 9, almost up to my top value, but not quite. Just want to get this value in there. More really than painting the form, I just want to get the value in there and make sure that it's going to work, that the value balance is right. Anita says, I'm learning about oil painting. I'm very glad. I hope you're learning something here. There's a couple of bits here are really high highlights, but I'm not going to go too far with that yet. Hard edge. And then we've got dark shadow underneath the little stem. I'm looking at the shape. It's a triangle with a lighter value on top. That's too light. So I'm just looking for patterns at the moment, really. Getting into some smaller shapes, so I've got a little brush out now. So I'm looking to paint this rose almost as if it was a ball, as if it was a sphere. The whole, got to go up to a 7 or 8. Light against light, paint across that edge. I looked at this and I was in two minds about whether to put these leaves in, but I'm gonna put them in anyway. I'm thinking about not so much the composition, but about visual cues and them being a visual cue for this being a flower here. You know. But then they disappear. Dark. Excuse me. Anita says, I'm used to acrylic, still skeptical about oil paints. Yeah. I mean, oh, beautiful painting, she says. Thank you. The main difference with oil paints is the much longer open time. So you need to plan a bit more than you do with acrylics, but it also means that there are a lot of effects that you can get with oils that you can't get with acrylics. You know. So okay. How are we doing? I think we're probably pretty close value-wise, I think. A little lighter here. So it's coming time to do something drastic with it. Excuse me. So I'm going to start pulling the paint around now. I've got fairly thick paint on here, right? So I can actually pull it around quite a lot. You know, let me show you something quickly that I was just teaching this the other day, Monday. This is a demo study. So you can see how soft that is. That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going now. I'm going to leave those because I'm going to put them in at the end. But now I'm going to soften everything. This is a very worn 1/2 inch semi-synthetic. There's no paint on it. And I'm wiping it off as I go. I'm leaving these hard edges here as part. And I'm going to basically every edge. I'm going to try and do this fairly carefully, but I'm going to soften every edge now. Pull the paint around. And then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to selectively, so I'm wiping this off all the time I'm doing that, selectively harden some of the edges. This is where the atmosphere starts to happen. I'm pulling the values into each other. This is something that you can do with oil paint, by the way, Nita, that you can't. Let's lose that edge. Let's just lose that edge completely there. That you can't really do with acrylics so well unless you have some kind of retarding medium. So I'm trying to be careful as I'm doing it, you know, because you can destroy the drawing by doing this. You can pull the drawing around too much and really destroy it. Some bits I will have to rebuild after this. It's time to be brave. The pressure is really, really light though. Really light. Something is wrong there. Probably drawing is a bit lost. So if you push too hard when you do this, you drag the paint around too much. So I'm just softening everything. Some of it, as I say, I'm going to have to go back in and rebuild now, because I will have lost edges that I want to keep. In the rows, I want some harder edges. Let's really soften these cast shadow shapes and all in this edge here. See how it's disappearing into like a... Keeping some brush strokes in the background though. So it takes a bit of courage to do this in a painting, because I'm basically destroying a lot of what I painted. So, you know, you've got to be willing to let go of some of it in order to, basically what I'm doing is I'm softening everything, and then I'll selectively go back in. And harden the odd edge here and there. Yes, Karen says you've switched to synthetics for softening edges. I have indeed, yes. That's all right, Marilyn, don't worry about it. Hello, Georgette. So, you know what I've got, sorry, apologies if you can hear the kids getting wound up in the background. Actually, I think I can, just playing a little bit now, get my light value. So there's some nice, I can start to introduce suggestion of some folds here to make this cloth like really, in a very subtle way. It almost becomes like an out of focus sepia photo. I must say, I'm loving this yellow, the low chroma yellows as a color to make value studies with. I've never done it with quite these colors before, but I'm very pleased with how this is going at the moment. Thank you, Roberta. Simon says, would you go over with a wash to add hints of colour or hue? Well, I mean, it's oil, so what I would need to do if I was going to do that is I would need to wait for it to dry and then glaze it. But I think I probably am not going to do it, I don't think. I'm just looking at some of the forms and thinking about where I might want to clarify a few things, like I can bring out the modeling factors a little bit around here. That will clarify that form there a little bit. Slightly darker here. So I'm beginning to work back in. Now that I've softened it all, I'm beginning to work back in again. There'll be quite a bit of sort of push and pull at this point. I really want to get those little highlights in. I'm in two minds about making those, keeping them really hard and making them soft highlights on the pot. Kind of in two minds about that. I guess some parts I'll allow to be soft and some parts hard. I want them to stand out. Part of what drew me to this was those. So this is pure white I'm putting in now. Was these little. Let's put this in with a nice thick blob. The little highlights standing out, a ghost of a form of the pot, but then the highlights kind of standing out, showing the texture. If you can hear some ball bouncing, it's because my eldest boy's practicing his basketball outside. I don't want to stop him because he's very keen. I'm going to drag that a little bit. I'm liking that. So I'm going to bring in some highlights now into the squash. There's a couple of areas that have highlights that I think are probably as light as that, if not. Almost as light, if not quite there. So this is something I'm teaching at the moment on a workshop, this process, but it's also something that I'm experimenting with a lot myself, to see where I can take it. And we'll go a bit, we'll harden this edge again, but just at the top here. Just the flower. Bring some light into the flower now. So lead white is nice for this because it's very stringy, so I can get, they call them ropes, like very small areas of high value. It's too dark. Sorry, I'm zoning out a little bit now at this stage. It's hard to do this bit and talk at the same time. Make that edge harder there. Bring that value down. And hopefully I'm not overdoing this and bringing in too many extra hard edges. Oh, wrong brush. And I can suggest the outside edge of the squash with a little bit of light value back here. You can just see it. Don't want anything hard back here though. Sorry, I'll try and catch up with the messages in a second. I'm just it's a bit focused, this bit, if I'm not going to mess it up, to be honest with you. Maybe just the slightest. So even these brushes that I'm using now are pretty rough. So they're much bigger than the lines I'm making, if you know what I mean, and the marks I'm making. Because I don't want to get too involved in the detail. I want to be still having a broad look. I mean, this is kind of, in a way, this is sort of a test for what may become a bigger painting, and it's also a test of trying to do like a monochrome painting like this. And now I'm thinking about whether I might want to put some color in the flower. I think I want darker value there. So you can see, I mean, hopefully you can see that this has gone a bit of a way away from, a little bit darker, from the reference photo, you know. I mean, that's certainly where it started from, and the forms are all in the same place, but they've been treated rather differently. A bit more, hopefully a bit more atmospherically. Push pull, says Judy. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Anna says, I don't use lead white, I use zinc white for mixing. Zinc white, you can probably get away with that as long as you don't work on canvas. If you work on canvas, there's a really good chance it's going to crack as it dries. So be a bit careful with that. Diane says, I don't know if it's the camera angle, but it seems as if the lid handle is slightly right of center. Yeah, it could well be. Could well be. I think you might be right. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, because if this is opposite this, then in between those is there. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Good eye. Good eye, Diane. Let's move him over. So that's actually the middle. So that's one side, other side. I'm going to define that a little bit more. But hopefully this is kind of quite instructive in the way that the pot has been painted. It's like it's not there, you know. But you feel it more than you see it. Which was the kind of the idea for this composition was all the light stuff down here at the front is like sort of triangle with these subtle kind of shadows at the back. Let's what did we have there, like a 5 or something to cut back into this, and then I'll need to soften it again because I don't want it to be hard. Nice. Gonna try a bit lighter up here. So I'm overstating a little bit this difference in value between these two, the light and the shadow, but I like it. I think it works. So what do you think? Composition is nice? I mean, a lot of this is like a test of the composition to see if I'm going to want to go further with it or not. At the moment, I'd say pretty pleased. let me catch up with the messages before I sign off for today. Zero says that the subtleties in the contrast are lovely. Thank you. Creating soft edges have always been elusive for me, and seeing how you create them helped me. Yeah, have a go. Try some small studies of just like little things, and then push it a little bit further. And notice also how this is completely amorphous around here. There's no, you can't really see what's going on around here. I could do almost anything in there. I don't know about you, but that doesn't bother me at all. I think that's fine. I could bring in a little bit of lower value just to suggest that there's something there in a couple of places. Very low value for the bottom of the squash here. Wonder, actually, that was quite interesting. Just brought in a little bit of transparent red oxide. Slightly, so it gives it a slightly higher chroma. Let's see what happens if I bring in a bit more. So this is transparent red oxide with the green. Where would I put it? Interesting. Bring it in just a little bit more chroma. It's not, I mean, it is color, but it's not the color that things are, if you know what I mean. Just bringing in a little bit more chroma into the shadow area there. Let's get this sorted out, because that's describing not a particularly good form now. So there you go. When in doubt, blur everything, and then only really obvious drawing mistakes will show. Brilliant. I kind of feel like I need a harder edge on this squash on the left, because that's, I mean, it's hard to say, because the little, a given color, the little rose here would be the strongest part of the composition, because it would have the most chroma. But like it is now, without any chroma, just in value, it's kind of, it feels to me like the squash on the left is probably more the star of the show at the moment. Fiddle with this forever, basically, now. At some point you've got to stop and say enough. Destroy this edge. No edge here, no edge here. Yeah. Well, I quite like where this one has gone. I think it could definitely be a painting. I could try bringing in just some colour in certain bits, or I could try the actual colour of the squash and the rose and see what happens. It's a shame people don't buy value studies, because I love them. Probably sometimes more than actual paintings. Miko says, is this alla prima? It is, yes, it is. This has all been in one session, yeah. Rajesh, good to see you. How are you doing, my friend? I've been very well, thank you. Love those edges. It's all about the edges. Yeah, all about the edges. Everybody seems to like the composition. Good. Ginny says, maybe check the right handle jug placement. Oh, you know what I think that is? I think it's the one on the left that's out. So I think I've let that, you're right though, I think I've let this highlight, I put this highlight in the wrong place. So if I walk that across there, I think it's the horizontal balance of the top of that against where the top of that highlight was coming. I think that would probably be a bit better. Is that better? I think that's probably better. I don't want anything that's going to argue with it too much, you know. I don't mind if things are really vague, but I don't want anything that's going to argue with the form and drawing mistakes. I got to put my hand up to that. I often miss them and don't see them until either someone points them out to me or I notice them a lot later, you know. I'm like, what? How could I not have seen that when I was painting it? And I want to bring this dark value here out. Just a subtle bit of definition. Oh, and now I've changed where this is. I need to bring that little bit of highlight back in, which is just underneath. And then there's a very subtle lower value one. Scarlett says, what was the palette again? Scarlett, it's Munsell. So what I've actually got here is probably won't tell you very much because I painted it entirely with the value string that I mixed here. So I will go over that again quickly for anybody who missed it. I've got lead white, yellow ochre, green gold, transparent red oxide, raw umber and black. But they are only there so that I could mix this string, which is the hue of this is 5Y in Munsell terms. That means it's a middle yellow, but everything is really, really low chroma, right? So up the top, we're down to chroma 1. And then I've got some which are actual neutrals at the side here, complete neutrals, so no chroma, no hue at all. And then down the bottom, the chroma goes up, so we're at about chroma 2. And there's a couple of bits where I've pushed the chroma a little bit, and I've probably gone up to about chroma 3, and I'm really loving those bits. In fact, I'm going to do a bit more, because it looks so nice. So that's transparent red oxide and green gold together. I'm really liking where that comes in just with a bit of extra chroma in the shadow areas. Actually, this has disappeared too much. Let's bring that back. It's just bringing something nice in there. It's like it's not a complete value study, but it's not color either. Somewhere in between. Hello, Michelle. Nice to see you. You'd buy a value study, would you? I don't know. I mean, you know. I've actually, for the moment, I've stopped selling paintings anyway, and I'm just experimenting. I may start again at some point, but this is like I'm pushing into atmosphere much more these days, and I'm beginning to. This is the start of some experiments I want to do with basically monotone paintings, but with different colors, like not colors that are straight from tubes. Colours that are very carefully mixed, that behave like light and shadow behaves, so they give a bit of realism, but at the same time as something different. And I'm going to probably do a little bit of this and then start to creep some colour back in here and there. Still wondering what this would look like if I put some colour on the rose. Hello, Heather, good to see you. Jean says, would lighter colours be lower chroma naturally? It depends. So if you've got something like a very high chroma yellow, like a lemon or an orange, which is obviously a high chroma orange, then the highest chroma area is in the highest value in the lights, except for the very highest value, the specular reflection, that will be lower value. But mostly the highest chroma would be in the lights. But when you have very low chroma colors, like this background is, for instance, and the squash is too, there it will tend to be higher chroma in the shadows, because where the light hits it, it goes down to almost no chroma at all. And then in the shadows, you have a little bit of like ambient light from the space, from the room you're in. So that will tend to bring a little bit of chroma and hue into the shadows. So then if it's a very low chroma something, then you will often find that that area of highest chroma is in the shadow. So the thing about all of these things is there aren't really too many rules that you can just apply willy-nilly to everything. You have to look at each situation and try to understand what's happening to the light, because it varies a lot depending on the situation, you know. Am I done? I feel like continuing to fiddle with this a little, but I think I'm probably done. So let's wrap it up now. Oh, Ellie, you're very welcome. Do you live stream on a regular basis? Well, I have been on Wednesday afternoons at UK time anyway, which if you're in the US is in the morning, for a little while now. I'm probably going to keep it going for a while too. The Wednesdays fit in quite nicely for me. You're very welcome, Scarlett. Francesca says, Paul, do you use lamp black or always ivory with the blue in it? Ivory black, always use ivory black, which I correct for. And Jim says, where'd you get your lead white from? A company called Supreme Paints. They sell Rublev, so this is Rublev lead white. But you can, if you're in the UK, you can also get this, which is Kremnitz white from Michael Harding. A lot of places sell this. This is basically just lead white, but it's a little bit stiff. There's not much oil in it. So with that, I usually add a little bit of oil. But Rublev lead white is just gorgeous straight out of the tube. Okay, time for me to sign off now. Thanks very much, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you, anyone who's on the workshop, I'll see you on Monday. Anyone in the school, I'll see you in the school community, of course. And I'll see everybody else next Wednesday. Thanks a lot for coming.